Welcome back. Did you enjoy your lunch? Yes? Okay. Okay, so as usual, like on Tuesday we did a post-lunch energizer. Yesterday the energizer was the photos. Today the idea was to go outside to do this, but it's quite cold, so we'll do it inside the room. So I'll explain the instructions, but if you all stand up first. Lucille, Anita, okay. Table in the far corner, stand up. Okay. If we make a loose kind of circle, so if you stand behind your chairs, we'll come around. You guys can come here. Yeah, so you can stand like this. We'll stand in a circle. Okay. So this is going to be a memory game. So we'll see how good our memory is. So it's remember the list. So someone will start by saying an item that they bought at the market. So for example, if I say I went to the market, I bought potatoes, the person next to me will say what I bought, what they bought, and so on. So you must remember, so whoever's on the end. Yeah, we'll try it out. Let's see, okay? So no. It's a memory game, okay? So let's see how well we do. Okay.
The next person, do you have to say I went to the market and bought?
Yeah.
You have to start like that.
She bought potatoes.
I went to the market, I bought potatoes. You say I went to the market, I bought potatoes and carrot, or so on and so forth. Okay? So I have the easy job. I'll start. So I went to the market and I bought carrots.
I went to the market and I bought carrots, chocolate.
I went to the market. I bought carrots, chocolate, and tomatoes.
I went to the market. I bought carrot, chocolate, tomatoes, and potatoes.
I went to the market. I bought carrot, chocolate, tomatoes, potatoes, and cabbage.
I went to the market. I bought carrots, chocolate, tomatoes, potatoes, cabbage, and bananas. Oh my goodness. I went to the market. I bought carrots, chocolate, potatoes.
No, we missed one. You missed one. Potatoes and then
Tomato, potato, cabbage. Bananas, obviously. I went to the market. I bought carrots, chocolate, tomatoes, potatoes, cabbage, bananas, and apples. How could you manage?
you knew the game.
I went to the market and bought
Start here.
Carrots.
chocolate,
cabbage, bananas, apples, sukuma wiki, and popcorn.
I went to the market, I bought carrot, chocolate, tomatoes, potatoes, cabbage, bananas, apples, sukuma wiki,
She was almost there.
and washi.
Washing.
Sweet potatoes.
Okay.
I went to the market and I bought carrots, chocolate, tomatoes, potatoes, cabbages, bananas, apples, sukuma,
I went to the market and I bought carrots, chocolate, tomatoes, potatoes, cabbage, apples, tomato, popcorn, sweet potatoes, strawberries, and shoes.
People are buying food.
Yeah, you did.
I went to the market, I bought carrots, potatoes, tomatoes, apples, chocolate, bananas, carrots,
Carrot again.
I give up.
Ah.
I bought courgettes.
You bought?
I bought courgettes.
Ah, courgettes. Cucumber imeenda group of school.
I went to the market, bought carrots, chocolate, tomatoes,
Potatoes.
Potatoes.
cabbage,
Banana.
bananas, sweet potatoes,
Apples.
apples, mawiki,
Popcorn.
popcorn,
Washi. Strawberry.
strawberry,
Shoes. Courgettes.
Vodafone.
Popcorn shoes. I went to the market, I bought carrots, chocolate, tomatoes, potatoes, cabbage, bananas, apples, sukuma, popcorn, washes, strawberries, shoes, courgette, a phone, and
Ndoma.
I went to the market, I bought carrots, chocolate, potatoes, tomatoes, cabbage, apple, bananas, apple, sukuma wiki, popcorns, sweet potatoes, strawberries, shoes, courgettes, corn, maize, I got oranges.
And drink.
Apples, sukuma wiki. What we call shoes, courgette. He bought a phone. Maize, oranges, green grams. I bought Noma.
Again.
No, we didn't say Noma. Arrowroots.
Oh.
I went to the market.
Wait, we're gonna do Maurice or Eric?
And Maurice.
Both of them.
Went to the market and bought carrots, chocolate, tomatoes, potatoes, cabbage, banana, apple, smoky, popcorn, guache, strawberry shoes, courgettes, corn, maize, oranges, grams.
And you?
And me, I bought wheat flour.
Which flour? Which flour? Yeah.
Okay. Is someone musically inclined to give me a beat?
Clap for it.
No, just. I went to the market and I bought carrots, chocolates, tomatoes, potatoes, cabbages, apples, bananas, apples, commodity, popcorns, guache, strawberry, sweet potatoes, strawberry, butterfly. We got the thing that. No, we don't buy a phone.
He bought shoes.
Something that I don't know how to pronounce.
Courgettes.
Courgettes. I bought the phone. I bought the phone too. Maize, green grams.
Oranges.
Oranges, green grams, guache.
Duma.
Guache ni hapa.
Guache is there. Duma,
Wheat flour.
And I bought sweet.
A sweet.
Sweet.
A sweet.
I bought mint plus.
I went to the market and bought carrots, chocolate, tomatoes, potatoes, cabbage, bananas, apples, tumawiki, popcorn, guache, strawberry, shoes, gadgets, phone, maize, oranges, green grams, luma, wheat flour, sweets, apple.
Another apple. Choose something else.
Lettuce.
It's good we go first. Okay, Hannah?
I went to the market, I forgot my list, so I didn't buy anything. No, I'm kidding. I went to the market, I bought carrot, chocolate, tomatoes, potatoes, cabbage, banana, apple, skumawiki, popcorn, guache, strawberries, shoes, courgettes, a phone, maize, oranges, green grams,
Yes.
wheat flour, sweets, lettuce, sunglasses.
Eve.
Definitely not. No worries, spirit is here.
Should be here.
Okay, I went to the market and I bought carrots, chocolate, tomatoes, potatoes, cabbages, bananas, apples, skumawiki, popcorn, guache, strawberries, shoes, courgettes, phone, maize, oranges, green grams, ndoma, wheat flour, sweets, lettuce, sunglasses, and a book.
Yay!
I really don't want to embarrass myself.
Okay, no worries. Thank you guys. Thank you. Well done. That's funny. You were right at the end. You knew what the game was. You could have put your...
I didn't see it coming.
Okay, welcome back everybody. Hopefully your brains are switched on, you've been fed. How is everyone feeling? Yeah? Okay, so we are sadly on the last portion of the day. This is the exercise that we're going to do from now until the end of the afternoon before we do the recap and the evaluation. And the idea is to put everything together as much as possible that we've learned and discussed and practiced all the way through the last 3 days, and crystallize it into an advocacy strategy. I know some of you work in areas where you will have already designed an advocacy strategy, you have a very good understanding of an advocacy strategy, but this is specifically around a KGBN work going forward type of advocacy strategy, so you can all play to your strengths and help each other in your groups. So an advocacy strategy is both an art and a science. Effective advocates must adhere to strategic and evidence-informed decisions and plan activities, whilst at the same time remaining creative and ready to seize opportunities as and when they arise. Strong advocates know how to negotiate contextual complexities in the policy process and still remain flexible enough to adapt to change in order to succeed. Having said that, most advocacy strategies, the process of designing one will vary depending on the issue, the policy, the political context, and the advocacy group or network trying to design one. But each advocacy strategy should broadly contain the following. So the first one is a well-defined issue. So what is the problem that you want to solve? Your advocacy issue should be specific and concrete, and it should clearly reflect the policy change that you want to achieve. Once you've defined your issue, you need to set clear advocacy goals and objectives for policy action. So you have to decide what your advocacy goal is. Oh yeah, sorry, I should have said, I really recommend you take notes because you're going to be breaking out into several exercises and you're going to be on your own. So define the issue. Set clear advocacy goals and objectives for policy action. So what is your advocacy goal? Your goal needs to build on your advocacy issue by adding who you're targeting, so the person or the institution or the office, and that person or that institution or that office needs to make the policy change. So your advocacy goal contains who, how the policy change will be made, so is it through a specific bill or releasing of some guidance or regulation, and when will it be achieved. You need to have an attainable goal with a realistic time frame. Your goal should be further broken down into a few short-term objectives that directly contribute to achieving your goal. Objectives are smaller steps that you must complete in order to reach the overall goal that fits into your issue. So you've got issue, goal, objectives. They should be very clear and very focused and should include the change you want to see, who will make the change, when it will be achieved, and should be very limited in number, so no more than 3. If your objective is likely to take longer to achieve than your overall goal, then it's not good and you need to go back and readjust. Once you've defined your issue and set your goal and your objectives, you need to identify your target audiences who can either make the necessary change or influence decision makers. So advocates need to understand both the policy, the process, and the political context. So it's important to know not only who your decision makers are, but also when and on what basis decisions are made. For example, the argument of making a cost-benefit argument versus a moral argument. You also need to understand, going back to yesterday, the budgeting process, the timelines, when public participation takes place, and where your avenues for intervention are. So when you're talking about your target audience, for example, donors and governments usually respond to evidence that policy proposals are a cost-effective strategy that impact economic development and meet their overall objectives. Ministries and service providers who are related to your issue need to understand the importance of policies that support evidence-based best practices. So the operational policies set at the ministries and the service providers link the national policies to service delivery and explain exactly how things should be. So this is where you'll be using logic, evidence-based arguments to show people the best practice to achieve a national objective. And then another target audience might be community leaders and their communities, and they care about the well-being or perceived well-being of the individuals in these communities. So when you're doing advocacy at the community level, you need to explain why change is needed, and you need to highlight the health or the economic or the social benefits or whatever benefits that you're seeing from your advocacy goal. It's a lot to do with understanding. So this is, those are your broad audiences. Then you need to have planned activities and communication materials as part of your advocacy strategy. So your advocacy activities should be designed to help you achieve your individual objectives, moving towards your goal. No matter who your target audience is, you need to tailor your communication materials depending on who you're speaking to. If you're speaking to the community level, your communications need to be accessible, they need to be understandable, they might not need to be written, they should be easily explained. Maybe you need to go there and speak verbally, you need to give speeches. If you're talking to ministers at the government level, you probably have a very short time frame and you need to have written and statistical evidence to back up the things that you're saying, and you need to be able to speak, explain your issues in a very concise way. People don't have time to listen. You need to anticipate the points of view of your opponents ahead of time, and you need to understand how to communicate in a way that builds bridges and identifies common ground. Maybe today isn't your yes, maybe next year is your yes, so you shouldn't be burning bridges as you go. Don't be afraid to use your imagination, but be selective. So you cannot and should not be able to do everything. You have to think about your expertise, your capacity, and what will have the greatest impact on your target, and as well with having your funds and your resources in mind. The final step that needs to be applied all the way through your advocacy strategy is your monitoring and evaluation strategy. You need to decide at each step how you're going to measure progress towards your goal and objective. So you need to determine at each point what data you're going to collect, how you will collect it, and how you will use this data to inform the decisions throughout the advocacy process. And as you go along, you should be adapting your monitoring and evaluation strategy as needed to your context. So as you're seeing things, you should be adapting. So we've rushed through it because I feel like all the experts are in the room and I need to give you space and time to thinking and start creating. But the aim of this exercise is by the end, using your flip charts, you're going to have a clear advocacy strategy from the beginning of this step to the last step that you're going to present in stages towards the group, to the rest of the group. Does anyone have any questions or thoughts so far? No? Okay, I'm sure they'll emerge as we go. So if we go to the next slide, please. In your groups, we're going to take the first step together. So you need to, I'm going to ask you to define your issue, set a clear advocacy goal, and also 2 or 3 objectives for policy action. These issues are, Lucille was keeping note throughout the last couple of days, are issues that we saw emerging in discussions that we were having in plenary and in feedback discussions in the Kenyan context. So you're very welcome to use one of these issues as a starting point, but also you're very welcome to use something else that is not listed here. It's whatever you have decided within your group, what you feel comfortable creating a strategy around. As I said, these are all issues, so even if you pick one of these, you're going to need to set advocacy goals and objectives around them. So I'm going to give you 10 minutes, and then when we feed back, you're going to be feeding back in groups, but on a clock you're going to be speaking at 2 minutes. I'm going to have a timer because we've got a lot to get through. Have I explained everything clearly? Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay, so I will call you back at 4 minutes past 3. Good luck.
So people don't come because they don't know about it. And it's mostly shared amongst us. It's not like there's no particular place you can go and find that information. Like even on the website, they rarely actually circulate. So we need a place where if you want to take one, you can especially go to a section which one is here. So you need to get us that has to be good. So we need to be access to where
No, that's our goal. I always use
Because now the strategy is to use increase public. For me, I think the goal is very specific. Whereas you want to tell us by I actually like your friend because you know, as I say, increase public should buy so that you measure. Objective will tackle each of these.
You were here, you were there.
Oh, how are we doing? 1 more minute? How are we doing? How much more time do we need? I'm being ignored and I don't like it, so... Okay, 2 minutes? Because there's so many stages, you know, so there'll be more. 2 minutes? Okay, guys, they're just airing me. They're literally just airing me. I told you. Okay, can we come back? Can we come back? Huh? You can keep writing, but I need everyone's eyes here. How did everyone find that? Yeah? Okay, who wants to go first? Yeah? Okay, there's still writing going on here, but the attention needs to be on this side of the room because they're going to present first. So, would this table like to go first? You made too much eye contact with me. So, you're going to have to, someone has to do it. So. Okay. Okay.
Thank you. So for this group, the issue that we chose was around public participation in the budgeting process. And to be specific, we chose absence of women, youth, and people living with disabilities, involvement in public participation in budgeting processes. So now that's our issue, and our specific, like the overall goal was to enhance meaningful public participation across the marginalized groups. So that's our main goal. And then we also had other smaller objectives to inform those marginalized groups on their rights and like budgetary issues affecting them, and also to improve citizen and county official engagements through the process. So those were our two other objectives, and we had one overall goal.
Yep.
In order to achieve that goal and those objectives, we had a few planned activities.
Oh, no. Okay, tell me, but there'll be you're gonna have a chance to.
Also,
this is just the issue.
Oh, okay.
You went further.
We went all the way.
It's just the issue.
Ah, then that's why it took longer. We went all the
I did
way.
not expect an advocacy strategy to materialize in 12 minutes. Like, you guys are good, but okay. So just the issue and the goals and the objectives. So I heard your goals and your objectives. I have a question.
Yeah.
What's your time frame? You need to have a set time frame for your goal and for your each objective. When will this be measured by?
We didn't think of that,
Yeah.
but I think now we can take note that that's something important in our strategy.
Yeah. No. The next stage is mapping your stakeholders, which Evian will lead you through. But we'll hear from other groups. Thank you very much. Next group. What issue? What did you pick?
Okay. So our issue was lack of county affirmative action funds.
Okay.
They're available at a national level and not at a county level.
Mhm.
So our goal is to empower women entrepreneurs through access to county women funds. For our objectives, the first is to provide credit to women entrepreneurs at county level. The second is to build capacity of women entrepreneurs or women in entrepreneurship, and a long-term objective, which will be realized later, to facilitate the marketing of goods and services.
Okay.
Yes.
So, in what time frame will you set for your goal and each objective?
Have we discussed that? No.
Okay.
Yes, we should discuss that.
That's fine. Because it can be, you're going to come back to it, but each goal needs to have a time frame in which it needs to be achieved, so that you can set your strategy, that you can plan your activities according to your time, and your objectives help you get there, so they are like small milestones in your time frame. Okay. Thank you very much. Group 3, we're going this way now. I think we have 3 groups have picked the same thing, but I think we have differences in the way that we've approached them, so I'm ready to hear it.
Okay.
Yes.
So for us, we also, our issue was around public participation. So public participation in the budget process, where we tackled the issue of low public participation. Okay, as the title says, self-explanatory. So for us, our target audience was women, people living with disabilities, the elderly, the youth, the quote-unquote elite, professionals, marginalized stroke ethnic minorities. For our goal, we aim to increase stroke enhance the public participation inside the budget process. Our objectives were to strengthen the citizen knowledge on public participation, as well as promote inclusive, gender responsive civic engagement in the budget process. So for our planned outcome was a 50% increase in participation of the unrepresented groups by a timeline of 2023.
Or 2023.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a timeline and we have clear objectives that measure the progress towards your overall goal. Very good, I like it. Thank you. Last but not least. Okay. Thank you for using the flip chart because it's going to make your life easier when you go to the next stage. Everyone take notes. Okay?
So we had the same issue, public participation in the budgeting process. Our goal was to ensure meaningful public participation, translating to ensure meaningful and quality public participation that translates into budgets that reflect the people's needs and priorities. We had 3 objectives. The first one, 2 objectives. The first one was to build the capacity of communities to be able to read and interpret budgets at grassroots level. And then the second one was to develop simplified versions of budgets and policy documents, including timelines for release for public participation. The second one is a very short-term objective, and it would happen, of course, within every budget cycle, so annually. The second one would be a longer-term objective because building capacity takes time, and we would look at now measuring impact within 5 years.
Within 5 years.
Yeah.
So you have an advocacy strategy that is 5 years long, and you want to measure impact at 5 years, but you'll be measuring progress towards your goal through annually, and presumably through the levels of participation increasing at each budgeting stage.
Yes.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. I'm going to hand you over to Ebian now for the next stage. I think you'll need your workbooks. Yeah.
Okay. So part of the exercise, now that you've defined your issues and you've set a goal and some objectives, will be to map the stakeholders. So in the workbook, I think it's on page 25. We've got 2 parts to this. So on this page, we have a list of stakeholders and the role description. So in relation to each stakeholder, we want you to, in relation to your issue, we want you to kind of list in what way this particular stakeholder would play in your issue. Okay, so what role would they play in advancing, sort of progressing your issue forward? And then the second, and also the stakeholders listed here are, they are just a list that we've come up with, but if you find that there's a gap or that there's someone that you can see here that's not listed, please feel free to add, and you don't actually have to go through every single. So just maybe focus on those who you feel is most important in relation to your issue. And the second part of the exercise, what we want you to do, we've got a matrix here of influence of power against interest. So we ideally want you to use the flip chart to map this into 4 sections, and with the stakeholders that you have focused on, place them in who you feel is the sort of at the highest influence, low interest, low influence, high interest, and vice versa, going round, placing these stakeholders in the relevant sections. And then in discussion, we'll get you to kind of feedback on why you've chosen a particular stakeholder that you have, why you've put them in this particular section, and what role the stakeholder plays in your strategy. Yeah, so feel free to use the list here, but also add and remove as you wish. Yeah, so we'll give you 10 minutes, and then the same thing, we'll get you to feedback in 2 minutes. Thank you. As a group, yeah, so use the flip chart. So you can start with the role description, and then you can use the matrix on the flip chart. Yeah.
And now harder. It's so you have to justice. You have to be totally on. You wash your hands properly. You wash your hands properly. So you're Kenyan now for this time. Then you take a photo and you need to take. Yes, yes. Like that before it's a very heavy Continue, let's see the list will be safe. It's just cool. I'm seeing all this Nice and quiet. And then getting someone to
we don't have we have not noted that women in this community using water that bring more face to it. We don't have water. I should not straight
someone will come and get you, or someone will come and get you and bring it back. Get lost elsewhere.
Public education.
It will find its way. She can negotiate.
I'm talking about directing That first thing, you know, you can do something like what is it? That is what do they do with that money? So for instance, to do what?
To sensitize them. No, just the two of them. But this is to the government. What is the other aspect? Then if it's in 2 minutes.
Hello, hello, hello. Hi everyone, I'm going to welcome you back. Ready to present? Yes. Not done? We can do it combined. So you can talk us quickly through the stakeholders and then kind of talk us through why you've mapped them in the matrix as you have. Yeah? How many more exercises do we have? We've got 2 more. What time is it? What time is it? Okay. Okay. I don't know what to do with it really. Huh? Yeah? Okay. Okay, you can talk us through as you
talk us through. Back to the room.
It doesn't have to be finished.
Back to this.
It doesn't have to be finished.
Yeah.
So you can talk us through what you would put up there if it's not there.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Big start here.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, audience. You want people to listen to you, so you have to listen to other people. Let's turn. Let's face. We're starting in this direction.
Okay. Okay. Wanjiku, Eve, Calvin, Gladys, Prudence. 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, we're gonna get you guys to start. It's okay if you haven't finished. Okay, so you can talk us through your ideas. So you can present to us stakeholders that you've listed and the role description in relation to the issue that you picked. And then briefly, I know you haven't done the matrix, but you can speak about it briefly.
Stand up so people know that we have a speaker.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
So we're still solving our issue of public participation, and it's in that background that we selected our stakeholders. So the first stakeholder is the grassroots women's organizations. We've identified them as the community champions for GRB. Their roles are going to be mobilization of people for public participation and also organization for attendance of training, sensitizations on budget reading and interpretation. They'll also be attending the meetings and capacity building workshops. And also assist in the development of simplified versions of the budget because they understand the language of the person at the grassroots. The other stakeholder is the larger national women's organization. So they're going to leverage their strategic partnerships to advocate for GRB at the national level. They also have access to resources, so resource mobilizations within their networks. Convene capacity building workshops. They hold a wealth of knowledge that can be passed down. Media engagement, and also they're involved in policy making, therefore they can be very instrumental in the development of policies on GRB. They also will help in the development of information, education and communication. Yes, information, education and communication materials. Then you have other equality and social justice organizations. Their main role is to form critical mass for pushing for GRB. They bring in different audiences. Since these organizations also seem to be women, again they'll bring in the voice of men and other people who've been left out. We also have media engagement. They're also involved in policy making. Advocacy efforts on GRB. They also conduct research and studies. Also assist in simplifying budgets to the different and make them relatable to the different audiences that they deal with. And also convening of capacity building workshops and as well as the information, education, and communication materials. The other stakeholders of the trade unions. They have a large presence at the national level, so they can also be used to advocate for GRB by simplifying labor law content and disseminating them to the public, because an understanding of the work environment for women makes a good case for GRB. We also have research institutes. They will be involved in data generation, situational analysis, baseline surveys, and also development of projections to show us what we expect in the future based on adjusting our behaviors right now. And also we have political parties and individual politicians. They convene meetings for capacity building. They also sign commitments to champion for GRB, policy amendments, legislation, and they can also be involved in funding. Then, we did not finish. Do you have something else? Parliamentary committees. They lobby and advocate for GRB and also pass the legislations needed for GRB. In the matrix, some of the groups that we had identified were at the high influence, high interest, we have the national women's organizations. At the high influence, low interest is, saying politicians is just tricky. Some politicians. We also have parliamentary committees if they're not properly incentivized. Then we also have at the low influence, high interest is grassroots women's organizations that they're mainly found at the local level. Not to say that they don't have a voice, but the impact it has on the development of the policy ultimately, yes. And also we have academics, especially individually. Those ones tend to, not unless you get your work published in well-known journals and such stuff, your research work might go unnoticed. And also we have academic networks with an interest in gender and the economy. Those can be high influence, high interest. Yes, because I think I think they have a voice and they have evidence-based. They have evidence, and so that creates good influence because they have reliable data. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That was really concise.
Who would you target first in your advocacy strategy?
I think we will target the grassroots women organizations. Yeah, because I think that's the baseline for us to, for people to know, for the information to be known by the local or the lowest citizen at the lowest level. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
Also, I think it's important to also prioritize targeting research institutes so that you can be able to get the data that is going to convince these other people that there's a problem or a gap that needs to be mitigated.
Great, thank you. Any questions for the other groups? Yep.
Where did you put the grassroots women? Low influence, high interest?
Low influence, high interest.
Grassroots women. Why do you think they have low influence?
They do not have a low influence in the public participation.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you look at it in terms of ultimately developing the policy, you can consider it as low influence in that regard. But they're not low influence in terms of getting people to actually participate.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think it's clear. Thank you.
Yeah. Policy. Yeah.
It's also why you're targeting them. Because if you're targeting them to mobilize people to engage in these spaces,
to articulate their issues in public participation forums, then they have high influence. But when it comes to policy change, that's not up to them. I don't think that's
within their jurisdiction. So then that would that is something that will fall on the side of duty bearers. So CCs, MCAs, and all that. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, we'll move to let's see. We'll do the group in the back. Is that okay with you guys? You ready?
You're going to help me, Daniel, where it looks ish. Okay. So our issue was of county, making county funds available to women entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So we, on the stakeholders mapping, started with the grassroots women organizations. So according to our issue, which is, oh, can't hear.
Let's try this one.
Okay, now you can hear me.
Yeah.
Okay. So so I was saying our issue was availability, making funds available at the county level for women entrepreneurs. So in our stakeholder mapping, we started with the grassroots women organizations, and their role is to publicize the fund, and they're also beneficiaries of the fund.
Mm-hmm.
The larger women organizations, their role is to advocate for more money to the fund, or more resources, and policy influence, and they can also be beneficiaries of the fund.
Mm-hmm.
The CSOs, they'll help out in mapping the beneficiaries, and also that's publicizing the fund, that's awareness creation. Research institutes and the think tanks, so this is around the data work. That is, so they'll carry out the baseline survey, the data collection, analysis, interpretation, and development of materials, and of course, impact assessment studies. For the trade unions, their roles, they'll help in policy formulation, also mapping beneficiaries because of their wide reach, and also awareness creation through their sub-unions. Political parties and individual politicians, so their role, as usual, policy influence, approval of policy in terms of resource allocation for implementation. Then we have the parliamentary committees. So it turns out these are the same people who sit on the committees, on the parliamentary committees, so they are still politicians. So they'll still one and the same: resource approval, legislations, that is the laws, and they oversee policy implementation. So that's where we reached. We've not finished. Then hopefully Daniel, you can help me with this. He's going to help me with that.
Okay, we did not draw it on the flip chart. So you have to follow with your eyes and ears. For the grassroots women organizations, we place them under low influence, high interest. The grassroots, eh? Okay. For the larger women organizations, we place them under high influence, high interest. For the CSOs or other social justice organizations, we put them under high influence and low interest. Okay. For the research institutions and think tanks, we place them in the box of low influence and low interest. For the trade unions, they are very hot and fiery. we place them under high influence and high interest. For the political parties, as well as the parliamentary committees, we place them under high influence, high interest. And that is the much we could do in the interest of time.
Could you elaborate on why CSOs fall under, it was high influence, low interest? Yeah.
And why academics, low influence, low interest, the thinking behind it. It's very interesting.
For the CSOs, the argument was that these are not, the assumption was that these are not community-based organizations, that's our assumption, that they could be these kind of national NGOs who will want to be seen or they want to be remembered as having pushed for this policy, but no any other interest. They could want to their mark to be seen in the policy, that they helped it to go through, they helped it in the drafting, but nothing much after that. That is our assumption. They're not just small organizations. Again, for the academicians and think tanks, we had an argument around there about the levels of influence and also interest. Where we said if we stick to the role of research, the research role, including maybe a dissemination of the findings, then the question is, in terms of the policy process, how influential are they? You know, that was argument even around this desk. Are they influential? Can they help in any way to ensure that it passes? You know, and that is why we set up there that, okay, they'll contribute, yes, but influential, we are not so sure whether they are influential in ensuring the policy sees the light of the day. And so we had an argument around the same.
I agree with you about the influence. Academics rarely have political influence. But why would they help if they didn't have interest? What's in it for them?
It could be a normative requirement, maybe. It's part of their advancement that we are doing this because we are a research institution. Normative requirement.
Usually the strategy around academics is they have a high interest because it's an area that they are researching for whatever reason. And then to be able to point to a real life policy outcome, they have a high interest in that. Usually very little influence. So this is the basis on which we trade with academic researchers. Like, we'll get your research into a policy, you know? So it's this strategizing that you have to do. If you have someone with low interest and low influence, then are they even a stakeholder? How will you even engage them? How will you convince them to give up their time and their resource? You have to think about the exchange value for the time.
So which is high and which is low in them?
I mean, it's very subjective, but it depends on the strategy. But for Women's Budget Group, academics are academics, high interest and low influence, but collectively, it leads to something.
But that was our initial thought, in fact. That was our initial thought. So we are not far away from each other.
No, not at all. Not at all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Calvin, question or comment?
I have a question for them. They're saying that politicians and parliamentary committees have, you said they have high influence and high interest? I would want to know why the reason. Because for us here we say politicians are high influence, but they have low interest. The interest.
So for us, we thought the interest is because of what it translates to, and it is a built-up interest because of issues of these are voters. This is like you want to woo the masses and be seen like you are supporting. So you have the influence first because you're a politician, and you're interested because you want to get back to being power and continue to be the representative of your community. So it becomes an area of interest. We cannot speak to their hearts, but we can speak to their ambition. So the interest is based on the ambition that they have as politicians. Not convinced.
No, I'm also not convinced, because if that's how we are going to judge them, then justify why they approve bills that increase taxes for the common wananchi. If the interest is for us, if the interest is us, I mean, I don't get, by that logic, it doesn't make sense why they approve bills which increase taxes. The interest.
So we were guided by our specific intervention, which was maybe I can yes. So it is supporting or to empower women through access to county women fund. So specifically on the fund, they have the high influence, high interest. When it comes to other issues around taxation, the increased taxation is not based on probably interest, but will be the issue at hand, or how do we want to see the country being able to being sufficient in terms of paying taxes and all that. But guided by our intervention on access to women to access county funds, it is an area of high influence, high interest, and the interest, like I said again, it's emanating from the political leadership and the will to continue being in the political power or something. Yeah.
So this is a demonstration. It very much depends on your context. For their advocacy strategy, they've identified their politicians as high influence and high interest. For your advocacy strategy, they're a barrier. It just depends on the context of what you're looking at.
Yeah, wherever there is money. For instance, the NGAF fund is given to women reps. So normally women reps they concentrate on like the money, giving the money to their voters. So they have the high influence in getting the money and also in giving it out. You can, for instance, we can just take for example Esther Passaris. That's one of her strategies that she used to come back into power because of the NGAF fund. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yep. One thing.
I also want to say something about the interest. It also depends on the entry point. You see, close to elections, if you're doing something, they'll be interested because they want to be part of that project, to be able to take care of their interests, especially if you're involving the public. And also, I feel like interest can be two ways. Can be positive interest and negative interest. Because recently I'm implementing a project on public audit. So one of the things that the politicians are really interested in this project is knowing whom I'm engaging. Why am I engaging the public? For them to understand the audit process. Because for them, they feel the public should not be on the know-how about how this audit stage of the budget is being undertaken. And so for them, they are interested not because they want to participate, but they're curious about the information I'm disseminating. They're curious about, I think at some point we were told to start going to the Council of Governors to seek approval on doing a project about audits. And then the Council of Governors now writes to that specific county governor and say, I have approved this project. And then we go back to that county and meet the county governor himself, plus the county attorney, because they said they cannot give us certain information about audit and the projects they have done. So interest can be two ways. So the positive interest is when their interests are taken care of politically, but then sometimes governments are curious to know what you are doing and how that information, because they really fear empowered citizenry. They have a problem with people empowered. So if you are empowering them, somehow you are not going to be good to them. But so interest can be both positive and negative interest.
Yes. Thank you very much.
But I can just speak up.
No, it's okay.
Okay, I've understood your context, but isn't that then contradictory for you to say parliamentarians have high interest even though they have bad intentions, then saying CSOs have low interest because they have bad intentions? Because you said CSOs have low interest because they just want their name there, but isn't that the same as saying parliamentarians have high? You understand? You can say parliamentarians have high interest, then identify it because they want their name there, it's self-interest. Then say CSOs have low interest because it's self-interest. I think it's contradictory.
For CSOs, we say they are they have high influence and low interest, and here the thinking was because they are not the direct beneficiaries of the fund. So they have an interest in that area just to see the representation of the community that can come around accessing the fund, but not, so they create that because of the influence that they have as civil society organization, but the interest is not emanating from, it's not as high because they're not the direct beneficiaries.
For your presentation, thank you. We'll move on to the group in the far right. We're running behind on time, so if you can make it concise.
So I'll be quick. We said the grassroots women organizations, they help to mobilize women groups for capacity strengthening in public participations. They also this will increase the participation of women in the budget hearings, writing memoranda, and contributing to discussions. The large women organizations will also strengthen partnerships with policymakers for example, parliamentarians, and also help in resource mobilization. Other equality and justice organizations, they mobilize human and material resource to address social gender needs and also strengthen capacity of communities to participate in the budget process. Trade unions, we said, like COTU, we had an issue where the professionals do not attend the public participations. So the trade unions could also champion for participation of these formal workers and the professionals in the budget process. Research and think tanks, they'll conduct studies on the barriers to public participations, the implications, and when they share their findings and duty, then we'll be informed on whether or not we need 100% public participation. Political parties would think they would influence the opinion of the locals and in some way increase public participation. I'll pass to Josiah to explain the matrix.
On the matrix, briefly, we listed as political parties as having high influence and low interests. Why? Because parties, by the virtue that they are the policy makers, most of these organizations and most of these entities, they mostly, and what from experience would, are interested in matters that have a direct bearing on them. For instance, Someone was saying about when it's an issue, they're discussing an issue of revenues and all that, because it has an implication on how the public views them, they would attend. But on something like public participation, the low interest, because higher public participation means more scrutiny on them, which of course they don't want. The other side, grassroots organizations, large women rights organizations and CBOs have high influence and high interest. High influence, high interest, because they're interested in these issues because they affect their communities. They have affected women for a long time, so the interest is high. They want to change the process. And the interest is also high. The influence comes in mobilizing a large mass of people for a cause, which I think they can do very well if they understand what it means for them. Then you have think tanks and individual academics. These are persons that are more research, evidence, and that. And I think, as we had discussed earlier, low influence, high interest. They working on their own on research projects in itself is not enough if they don't partner with other people like the civil society, so that their the influence is complemented. So low influence, high interest. Thank you.
I know quite a few groups, so the 3 groups have the same issues that you're focusing on. Are there any discrepancies? Have you guys agreed on, have you got the same matrix? Have you placed it in the same, so there's no differences, is there? Okay. Is there anything missing from the stakeholder list that you identified would be a potential stakeholder that you've missed on the list that would be useful for your issue?
I would think religious organizations.
Okay. Okay. Pretty?
For some other issues, not necessarily public participation, we also need to include the private sector.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think there was a section, there's a business on the list. Yeah.
Yes, and also the Council of Governors.
Mm-hmm.
I think it applies for everyone because they're like small presidents for the counties, and they're the ones who give directions as to what projects and activities are going to take place in that county. So it's also very vital to engage them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any comments? No? Okay, thank you to the group in the back. We've got the final group, yeah. I also forgot to make a comment for the group in the back. You definitely got grilled, but you defended yourself well, I would say. So well done for that. Okay, we've got the final group, same issue, but let's see if you've tackled it from a different angle. You can present your stakeholders in the matrix.
So the stakeholders, just a few in terms of the roles. So grassroots organizations, mobilization, information sharing, and also public participation. National Women Organization, public education, convenings, policy advocacy, and also trainings, which are important. Mm-hmm. Social justice organizations, policy advocacy, sensitization, movement building, maandamano, and public public interest litigation. So maandamano is demonstrations.
Okay.
And then trade unions, advocacy on labor rights, and so on and so forth. Think tanks, research, public education, advocacy, engagement with policymakers, political parties, basically aligning the national agenda with the world units agenda. On the matrix, so the high influence, low interest politicians, I think that's been mentioned. CC Finance, he possibly just cares about the tenders. MCAs, which is the same as members of parliament, and then what that mean, and so on and so forth. High interest, high influence trade unions. I think we have a very vibrant workers trade union in Kenya. So I think they have high influence, and then also grassroots women organizations because they also make up their voting constituency. So low influence, low interest, individual academics, low influence, high interest, larger women organizations. We felt that they do have high interest, but maybe could be also due to the patriarchal society. Women rights are not really advanced. Research institutes, we have a lot of good, credible research. I think it could be problems with dissemination, also just having them access some of the people who are in this space. Civil societies, we felt that they do have high interest, but they have low influence because we have too many civil society, but then the issues are still persistent. So yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of what we were able to do.
Thank you. Thank you. Any comments from anyone? Questions? Yeah.
I may have.
It's working, thank you. I may have missed it, but I didn't hear anyone talk about administrative officials. Where is the place of the chiefs in terms of you have? Okay, I missed it, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, any questions? No? Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, thank you, guys. Thank you. You engaged with that exercise really well, and we hope that this will be a tool that you can use moving forward in your work. Stakeholder mapping is just one element of the advocacy strategy, but it's an important one, helping you to map out, and it saves time as well, who you should speak to, who is the most important, and how far can you get with using that particular actor. So, thank you. Yeah. We've got two more steps.
Well, we're now in your time, so you have to tell me. We had planned for the next two parts of the advocacy strategy. I think my suggestion is that we focus on the planning of activities and planning one activity for your advocacy strategy, bearing in mind you've now mapped your issue, your objective, who you want to target. If you have a limited amount of resource, limited amount of time, which activity would you plan, and are there any communication materials that that need to support that? I want to give you 15 minutes to do that and then present, but like I said, I'm happy to proceed with your consent because it's the last day. I know you're tired, so it's up to you. Josiah, a steer would be helpful, but is that okay?
What time is it now?
It's now 4:15, which is our scheduled time to finish. So this would take us up until probably 4:45, maybe 5.
So we want to incorporate time for evaluation as well. So
yeah.
If we give 10 minutes, 10 minutes to come up with one activity, and then we can feedback and see where we are. Yeah? Okay. Thank you.
I think after.
like visual representation of the
So, it's working. I've had a request that I clarify the instructions of what a planned activity is. Okay, I apologise. So your advocacy activities should be designed to help you achieve an individual objective. So if you focus on one individual objective, that moves you towards your goal. So no matter who your target audience is, any communication materials need to be tailored towards your audience, and you need to anticipate the points of view of opponents and understand how to communicate in a way that will build bridges and identify common ground. So an activity, for example, an awareness raising campaign, that's an activity. What communication methods go with an awareness raising campaign? If your activity is lobbying or influencing policy change, which policy are you going to target, and what communication materials do you need in order to support this activity? What is the one activity you're going to do to achieve, to work towards one of your objectives under your strategy? You know, thinking around things like research, influencing, or capacity building, one of these things that we've discussed at the beginning of the day. Is that clearer? Yeah?
Again, you said it should cover target audience?
Yeah, when your target, it needs to be tailored to communicate to your target audience. Yeah? And it needs to, so this, in this particular exercise, you need to present one activity that you're going to do to meet one of your objectives under your advocacy strategy. Yeah, just one. One activity for one objective.
Videos are also graphics. Yeah.
Local what communication This is a very important number one. It will tell you not to go to the public participation in the Mondays. Like you don't understand the issue, then you don't look at most of the people like some simple tracking on the bus. Just look at that. One of the problems is usually people go to a meeting, but it is not being people just go there to complain. You don't know even how much role
to show how public participation is
But maybe they need to see this while they present their answers.
Because what we have is an output. An output. So these are
Hi everyone, one more minute.
Yes, yeah, other lectures, communities, the part of yeah, so see, when you're like minorities,
You guys, oh, you're missing 2 members.
We're done.
You okay to present? Okay. Okay.
We can go first.
Okay.
Are we ready? We already have a volunteer who's going to present first, so everybody back in the room. How was that? Are we all done? Yeah? Good. Okay, good. Okay, the floor is yours.
Oh, so the activity that we have selected is so this is what we've named it, a citizen-led baraza. The target is grassroots women organizations or women groups, and what we will do in that for that activity, what we need is IC material on focusing on GRB, but we also need to prepare some capacity building material on the budget process and their role in that process, where they can come in and what they can, how they can go about highlighting their issues and priorities, especially as regard with the GRB lens. What we expect from that activity is memorandum from the women groups represented, highlighting their issues. And we also look to have the women engage in the public participation spaces on the upcoming budget decisions, which will be the annual development plans.
Okay, brilliant, very specific. Does anyone have any comments or questions on this activity?
What was the activity? Hoping they understand what baraza is.
Can someone translate? I understood the activity, but the title. Thank you.
Yeah, it is it's just a meeting.
Okay, yeah.
It's a meeting.
Like a town meeting.
A town meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any volunteers to go next before we pick on you?
Okay.
Rachel. Asha.
All right. So we were looking at our objective, that is to build the capacity of women entrepreneurs, and the activity is capacity building of women in business on public finance management issues or regulations that relate to their business environment. So it could be issues of taxation, licensing, and making just having a conducive environment for them to do their daily business activities. So we are going to use workshops, and then we are going to use simplified IC materials on issues of public finance management, such as the citizen-friendly version, to actually build the capacity of these women to understand these issues. We are also going to use social media, which is a very powerful tool when it comes to civic engagement. And also we are going to use vernacular radio stations because we are targeting grassroots business women. So this radio station will be able to help us disseminate the information in the respective local language or native language that these women understand. Also, we are going to use community, social, or town hall meetings because, as we said, we are targeting the grassroots women when it comes to the issues of capacity building them. So the outputs are workshop reports, social media engagements, and the memorandums when it comes to them engaging the policy holders. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions? I thought this was excellent, very specific. You have clear outputs. You have very accessible materials, tailored to different audiences. Yes. Well done. Well done. No, the entrepreneurial, building capacity of women entrepreneurs.
Capacity building of women in business on PFM issues and regulations that relate to their business environment. Because we have a project where I work on engaging the chambers of commerce. So we train them on PFM issues, and then they look at issues of their interest, like the finance bills, and analyze and make sure their interests are taken care when they lobby for policy reforms, whether it is taxation, having a conducive business environment. So making sure that the business community is also part of the policy processes and discussions. Oh yes.
Very good. Thank you. Who's next? Okay. Please.
Okay, so our objective was to strengthen citizens' knowledge on public participation. So our target audience are women, men, youth, PWDs, and the elderly. So our target audience aims to bring around social inclusivity. So So for our activities, one, we thought it would be very fit to develop a simplified module on public participation. So we called ours the Mwananchi Guide to Public Participation. Two, we also thought it's fit to conduct public participation radio talk shows in the local language. And as she said, information dissemination is very key. So it's also a bit easier and more in touch to do it in languages that they find easy and quote unquote layman. I don't want to use that word, but yeah, I've used it. So three, to train civic education providers at the village level to be able to also relay the same to the people in the area. And four, we went around facilitation with subcontext to people with disabilities. So one, most of them don't go to public participation forums because there is no one to transport them from to and from the social halls. So we also thought it would be fit for a Braille Mwananchi guide and also facilitators that are trained in sign language for them to understand what is going on. Yes, thank you.
Okay, very good. Did you ever think about, for the facilitation for the people with disabilities, like a transport arrangement to help them get to and from meetings?
That's transport facilitation.
Transport as well. Okay, perfect. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. I thought very good because you're focusing on very close. You're focusing on who should be in the room and which voices are included and how to include them. So, excellent. Finally.
So far, we feel like our team is already winning because, as you can see, they have crossed over to our activities. So we are not doing too badly. Our activity was to capacity strengthening of grassroots communities to read and understand budget documents for a meaningful and quality public participation through community forums. So we have a target audience of women, youth, special interest groups. Here you will have the PWDs, the marginalized groups, and men, cultural custodians, and opinion leaders, because a lot of times this is where the power is. And then our tools, we intend to have a simplified budget. Again, simplified in Kiswahili and the local vernacular languages. Then we also hope to have an info pack tool because we feel like pictures can speak 1,000 words. So just having a tool that talks our language but in pictures. This is very important even for the youth. We have something called the microwave generation going on. The attention to detail, their span for concentration is like, so pictures do the thing. How we intend to communicate about our activities through social media to reach the young people. As we know, a lot of our young people do not participate in governance processes, including the just ended election. So social media is the one sure way to reach them. Community radio stations, as you heard, we have a wealth of them on this table. We have one that belongs to a forum of another 54. So we will be using those community radio stations, caravans, announcements in barazas, religious gatherings, town hall meetings or the nyumba kumis, and estate meetings.
I'm sorry, what do you mean by caravans? Maybe, I don't know. Oh, okay, okay. So to go to people and reach them.
Yeah. Okay. So like there's a radio station that's very popular for having those on a very frequent basis. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Maurice has a question.
In terms of
in terms of the caravan, how will you monitor the reach, maybe? How many people your target reach?
So the caravans will be used to just let people know that we are having the event. It will not be the forum through which we reach people. It will be like an advertisement on the caravans.
And when you say capacity building, you mean workshops?
Yes.
So capacity building workshops.
Yes.
And these are the promotion and the communications for
Yes.
the workshops?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah?
Question. We also want to cater to special interest groups. I'm hoping that in terms of your IC materials and communication, you go further and include, for example, maybe braille materials for visually impaired and sign language for persons.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So that brings us to the end of our. Sorry.
So we went ahead and actually visualized our event per se, and we thought that we could borrow from some of the best practices that have been happening here in our country, where in one county, the governor began the public participations at the village. So he'd have every village constitute itself, elect leaders, and then sit down and critically discuss what are their priority areas of need and list them in order of priority. These several villages would be constituted into a ward, and these leaders would then represent their respective villages at ward level. And then that would progress to constituency and then to county level, where the governor sits. So at the point where it gets to the governor, they would then have a list of projects right from the village level to the highest level in order of priority. So each cluster selects leaders that constitute the next level. And so the governor and the leadership would sit down and look at the money vis-a-vis the projects. Of course, we never have enough money. So they would look at what makes sense, and they would communicate that back downwards to the village level. So our village would know we are getting a bridge, we are getting a school, we're getting a hospital. And then their village would know they're getting a road, police station, healthcare facility, and so on and so forth. The tenders or these projects are given out at the county level. And so the person comes now back to the village and implements the project that they have been given. For them to access the payment, this village is responsible for monitoring the project. So if you build us a bridge with stones that are not of good quality, you cannot access your payment until we sign that your project was properly done and we are happy. Part of the payment documentation within that county is these papers that are written by people who have hardly been to school in handwriting. They're not printed, there's no Microsoft Word there. It's just handwritten that the village has accepted the project. And that is your first presentation for payment. So we thought if we would be able to sell this model within our project, then it would make a lot of sense, and a lot of people will, there'll be ownership of the project at the
grassroots.
Yeah, grassroots.
So you're tapping into an already existing structure and using it to
Yes.
further your strategy.
Yes.
That's excellent. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, so that brings us now to the end of our practical activities and exercises, and also to the end of the workshop. So I want to say thank you again to all of you for all of your enthusiasm, your participation, your engagement, your presence. Just coming here for 3 days, I know, is a big, big thing. So we're very, very grateful. We've been planning this for a long time, so it means a lot to us that you were able to stay for 3 days. And the workshop is only as good as you make it. So we've been very lucky and blessed to have such wonderful participants. So thank you so much. Thank you to you. Yeah, I have no doubt of the talent and the expertise in the room. So I've learned so much. So thank you for teaching me. I'm going to pass over to Evian to say a few words as well.
Thank you. This is a learning experience for Hannah and I as well. We've learned so much from all of you individually, and you're still saying to me that Kenyans are very honest. They'll come maybe the first day and check it out, see if they like it, and they won't come the second or third day. So we're very grateful that you guys have stayed throughout the 3 days and engaged. I mean, all these posters on the wall are just a testament to how much work you've put in over the 3 days, and we hope that this is just the beginning for the steps to come, and hopefully as a unit you can continue to work together moving forward. So we're very grateful for your time and experiences. I don't know, Lucille, if you want to say anything.
I'd like to give a vote of thanks, of course, to the participants. If you are not here, then this was all for you. So thank you for making your time, setting apart your resources, and just making this fun. It was really, really nice learning from you and you learning from us. I also like to thank CCGD for organizing this and bringing all of us together. Hopefully, moving forward, we'll be having more projects. And thank you, Women's Budget Group, from coming all the way from UK to come and facilitate together with me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Thank you. Okay.
Yep, from a Women's Budget Group point of view, none of this would have been possible without our partners, CCGD. Josiah, we have been in constant meetings and planning together since last year, January. So it's been excellent to have you as a partner and always encouraging and supporting each other on this gender responsive budgeting initiatives. So for a bit of quiet reflection, you have your final reflection exercise in your workbook, which we'd like to invite you to fill in to help distill some of your learnings and thoughts today. And then there's also an exercise in there. I'll just go to the next slide. So in the reflections page, there's looking back over the last 3 days.
This is page 31.
Yeah, page 31. Looking back over the last 3 days, we'd invite you to fill out and complete the sentences. So before beginning the training, I felt or I thought that. An especially satisfying moment this week was when, and then choose a time. An especially challenging moment this week was when, as a learner this week helped me realize that, and following the training, I would like to continue working on. And then, if you have a moment, please take a look back at the professional goals that you set at the beginning of the training on day 1, which we put on page 10, and write down how you feel about your progress from the objective that you set at the beginning to now. So I'll give you 5 minutes to do this reflection, and then there is another pledge exercise that you're welcome to look over, but I'll explain after you've had some time. Thank you.
No, I'm in my own world. I know. I want to.
Nairobi, we have
They are really good in business.
Mm-hmm.
We go to Eastleigh, carpets, curtains, hotels, baby clothes. We have really done well. When young people go, just tell if he has a shop, you can come and support.
To my uncle's shop?
I'm sure he has a shop.
No. Hey everyone, hello. You guys, I'm just going to ask you to feedback some of the answers that you've put down. Has anyone, if we look at the last one, please take a look back at your professional goals that you set for the training. How do you feel about your progress? Has anyone done any reflection? Do they feel like they've at least closer to achieving this objective, or they have achieved it? Yes? No? Anything? Yeah? Thank you.
I think I had this conversation with Lucille after her presentation, and when on day one I said that my professional objective is to deepen my understanding of the GRP tools and how to use the same in my work. And we've been stuck with the 5-step approach for so long because the outcome part there was no outcome really. And I was letting her know that now I think we can go and revise our methodology and pick another approach that is the gender specific and the gender mainstreaming. And I feel like because for that we already have all the data, and I think I am the biggest winner. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, or any of the other points, an especially challenging moment this week, if anyone has had any? Or a satisfying? Challenging or satisfying moment from this week? Josiah? Yeah? Like.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think for me, one thing that stood out for me is the facilitators and Lucille going along with innovating as we go by, realizing that we had planned this, but we are getting this sort of vibe that there's a need for this, a discussion on unpaid care and domestic work, a more in-depth perhaps analysis, or subjecting the tools to an actual analysis and looking at the budget at a practical sense. That really stood out for me because it meant that you're in sync with the needs as we progressed, and that to me it requires a special training facilitation skill to pick up that fast and not stick to the original plan, but now get a plan that now fits the moment. Per se, that was something that stood out for me. And on my
On my personal part, I gained a lot through that. As Dami said, the various tools to use. And speaking from KGBN perspective, I think our analysis was more focused on monitoring. There's this reduction, increase, then we say this should be increased. But now having all those tools and applying them, perhaps we'll be more relating them to policies, commitments, and many other things that could make a more convincing statement or argument. So that's really important. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks. I think when I was invited to this workshop, I was, to be honest, I was trying to duck it. If I'm being very honest, because I thought like I already know a lot of, all there is to know about GRB, but I think what I realized by literally, after the first tea break, I realized, there's a lot that, I could definitely learn from, and that I have. And I think I've learned a lot from the diverse group that we have here. And it's been so insightful, but also very entertaining, thanks to the facilitators as well. But also people, like, it's not been like, the typical workshop where, people are quiet, people are dark. Okay, sorry, I've ducked a few because of the calls. I just realized I'm saying people are, doing other businesses, but I think it's been such a fun, such a, full of learnings and full of new information that, I, not myself particularly, but people would assume that, they already know. So thank you to the participants and the people that have contributed to this rich discussions and deliberations, but also to the facilitators who've kept it very interesting and, switched it up to groups and, a lot of interesting ways of delivery, which I'm hoping to also, take away with me when I'm having my own workshops. But yeah, thanks to everyone.
Thank you. Something.
Okay, I stand. So at the beginning, I remember we said GRB is not about women, but I don't know, judging by the audience of this room, we have very many women. I don't like that. Anyway,
we've got 5 men. That's a record.
And Maurice
and Eric are also participants.
Anyway, that's what I like note. But I'm grateful that I saw that even though it's not about women, you cannot evade keeping women at the focal point, because at the end of the day, data and evidence shows that women are at a more vulnerable place or are a bit more disadvantaged than women. And as I'm from the Child Rights Network, so I have to say I was very happy when I saw that research that they found out that children are poor because their mothers are poor. So yeah, children go hand in hand with women, and you cannot separate them. So I'm happy that when we improve women, we improve children, and generally we improve families. And I'm happy that this process made me see that more clearly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Also, a huge thank you to Maurice and Eric. It's not easy to be recording and projecting and keeping everything on the live stream, so thank you very much.
Thank you. And the
photos which we're going to take, and to Anita, our scribe, who's been reporting and recording everything that we've been doing. Thank you.
So there's 2 parts. So this process here, this reflection is more of an evaluation for yourself. There's also evaluation that we want for us and for CCGD as well. So those are 2 separate stages that we will disseminate after the training. So I have sent a commitment form to everyone that CCG has put together. I think Josiah will speak a little bit about it, but you have, normally after a training everyone's tired, everyone wants to get out, so we don't want to make you sit here and fill out the evaluation form. We want to give you time to let this digest, so you can be truthful and honest in your answers. So I think, Josiah, did you say you want at least by tomorrow or by the weekend?
Yeah, thank you very much. There's a form that the essence is it's voluntary, first of all. You can feel it. It's about the things that you want to do, but whether you want us to, it's what is being projected here. We are calling it a GRB Training Action Plan or a commitment form. So it's voluntary. It answers to one of the objectives of the training is that it's practice. It will be practical. So after this, you probably think you will do something related to advocacy, research, analysis, communication advocacy. So what is that action that you will do? When will you do it? Any further technical support that you may need. And through the network, we can be able to organize, maybe do you need to run your ideas through someone else? We also realize there are people who are requesting kind of more tailor-made trainings or just sessions to speak around a particular issue, and we'll be able to find facilitators to maybe organize a 1 hour webinar, 2 hour webinars on specific things that will enhance your work. So that's the essence of that. It's meant to pick out those things from you, and also just help us to get into contact with you if you want us to get in touch with you after the training. So that's the essence of the form. It's been shared, but I think there's a problem. It's already in your email, but it's been shared in an editable format. So we'll reshare one that you can actually feel.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you can do it when you're relaxed between now and tomorrow evening, because the energies are really low now.
Yeah, and the sooner the better, so everything stays fresh in your mind. And yeah.
Yeah. So the final thing, we really value feedback and evaluation for us as trainers and for facilitating and planning a workshop, because it helps us to improve. Like we've said many times, this is our first in-person training, so we also want you to go away and think about all of the things that you've learned, what you liked, what you didn't like, and be as honest as possible. So we will be sharing a feedback form, again a Google form, on Monday. And the trade that we're going to do is, once we receive your feedback form, we will be issuing a certificate of attendance to verify that you attended this training, because certificates are important. They say that you've spent your time here. They show that you've worked hard, you've been here all of the 3 days. But from our point of view, my experience is you get better feedback when you give the certificate after the feedback form. So yes, but if you have, so we'll be sending the feedback form out on Monday with all of the links to the resources that we've referenced across the 3 days.
The presentations as well.
Presentations as well. So you'll have everything that you need going forward if you ever want to look back on things. And once we've received your feedback form, then we will be sending a certificate of participation. Does anyone have any questions on any of the above?
Also, the workbooks obviously are for you to keep. Our contact information is on the back, so yeah, please feel free for any use.
Yeah, please keep in touch.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay.
Thank you everyone. Actually, I think I said this on the first day, but thank you for honoring the invitation and actively participating for the 3 days. More so, I wanted to give a special vote of thanks to the UK Women Budget Group. I think the training has been invaluable for most of us, particularly for me. I think my knowledge on gender responsive budgeting was very limited. Lucille for the training and the materials and the engagement, the group activities, that has really helped.
I also want to appreciate the time that has gone into the planning and the resources that you have actually put into this. We don't take it for granted, and I hope that as we leave here today, we are making a commitment to further the conversation. Someone has requested that we also work on having a WhatsApp group where we can engage further and communicate, share learning materials. So if are we in agreement, I'll work on that, and we can have a WhatsApp group for those who are present. So for the Women Budget Group and the trainer, thank you so much. Thank you for the commitment. Thank you for your time and the resources that you've put into this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Prudence.
you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. I think that's,
I think that's it. Picture time.
Yeah, we have to have a picture, but I hope that you're able to network and build and go on and carry on with the gender responsive budgeting, and we'll do the same. So yeah, and hopefully we meet again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.